Escalating tensions with Iran, the Iranian foreign minister warning that the U.S. can't expect to stay safe after starting what he called, quote, an economic war. So could the economic pressure backfire on the U.S.? Let's bring in retired General Jack Keane, Fox News senior strategic analyst. First of all, what do you think of these comments coming out of Iran?
Well, I think it's pretty typical. They're full of a lot of bluster, certainly. They're dealing with their domestic audience, and they're under severe economic pressure. You know, their economy's contracted 6%, Melissa. The rial is in the tank in terms of the currency valuation. The inflation's at 37%, food shortages and power outages on a regular basis, and a growing sense of civil unrest in the country. So that's the pressure point that they feel, and that's why these blustery comments. And it's also why our military and intelligence services detected that the Iranians seem to be preparing for some kind of complex attack, either against a U.S. facility or against U.S. troops, which obviously we put troops into the area to safeguard against that possibility.
So the people that don't support the president point to things like that and say that he is making Americans unsafe by putting this much pressure on the regime, as opposed to trying to have a dialogue, that the end result is that they do lash out and kill people, and that would be the fault of the president.
Yeah, that's an argument that could be made, but it really is a specious argument. The president walked away from the nuclear deal or the JCPOA last year, and the Europeans are up in arms about that, as are the Iranians. But look what the deal was doing. It was allowing them at some point in 15 years to actually move to a nuclear weapon if they decided to move to a threshold capability in 10 years, which is just around the corner. And the president looked at that and said, no good. That is a lousy deal. He went back to the Europeans for almost a year to work with France, Britain, and Germany to see if we can improve on the deal. They wouldn't make substantive changes to the deal, so then the president walked away from it.
Yeah.
And as a result of the deal, when it was struck initially with the Iranians, they received $130 billion, Melissa, which has been fueling what they've been doing in the Middle East. What are they doing? They run the civil war in Syria. They toppled the Yemen regime, which was friendly to the United States and to our allies. Their undue malign influence inside Iraq. They provide all the rockets and missiles to the Hezbollah and to the Hamas. Hamas just a few weeks ago fired close to 600 at them. Virtually every one of those is an Iranian missile. So that's where we are.
Yeah, let me ask you about less extreme cases, because this is an argument that the other side makes a lot, that when we use this economic pressure, whether it's China, whether it's Russia, whether it's in the form of sanctions, or it's to lever a negotiation like with Mexico, that it has a real potential to backfire. And, for example, you know, one of the arguments with China, that this is a regime that, you know, while they're doing all kinds of things that we don't like, they aren't as bad as regimes before them, and they are more of a friend to the U.S. than China has been in the past, and that if we put this much pressure on them and potentially, you know, cause unrest in China and really damage the economy, that, you know, this could really backfire. And not only, you know, could the economy turn down, but we could end up with a regime that hates America so much more because we've made them miserable.
Well, the fact of the matter is we were hoping that China economic reform would lead to political reform. And that was a lousy bet. They're more authoritarian. They're a repressive regime. They got 2 million Muslims in a concentration camp. They got tens of thousands in their own jail cells. They've been taking over the Indo-Pacific region during the Obama administration at the expense of our allies in the United States. President Xi makes statements on a regular basis that he fully intends to replace the United States as a global power in the world. So our critics would have us wring our hands over that. Let's treat China like with kid gloves. Let's not impose any tariffs on them. Let's not push back on a militarization of the South China Sea and what they're undermining our allies every single day. Last year, Japan alone had to alert their fighter aircraft because of China's airplanes' incursions on Japan 637 times in 1 year. and they're up 30% this year. That's just typical of what is going on. And people have been sitting on their hands, Melissa, and doing nothing. This administration is looking at this problem. It's much more than tariffs, and saying we have got to deal with this. This is the long-term strategic threat to who? To the American people. And anybody that doesn't understand that is just not paying attention. And we've got to have a plan to deal with it. And the administration, I think, is picking up the ball and running with it.
No, it makes all kinds of sense, but I wonder if there's a situation around the world where economic pressure is being put on that you think is inappropriate, where we shouldn't be behaving in this manner. Do you see something like that when you look around the globe? Because it's just the common argument from the other side that, you know, go ahead.
I think the tariff infrastructure imposed on Mexico, if we actually had to do that and had to go beyond the 5 to the 10 to the 15 that the president was talking about in terms of escalation, and given the nature of the trade that takes place on a daily basis with us as a major trading partner, that I think would have had some rather adverse impacts and could have backfired us. But I think what we're doing with China, and it's much more than tariffs that we're pushing back on, is the right policy. We've got a whole of government approach with our allies in dealing with China's aggression. They are the aggressor, not the United States.
Okay.
They've been stealing our intellectual property.
The president's about to break in here.
Good.
General Jack Keane, thank you so much.